Hello and welcome to the newsroom with Sana. Today we're going to be taking a look at the top stories of the hour, starting off with what is happening between Iran and the United States. And as there seems to be certain skirmishes still continuing, it is important to note what that means in the larger context of any possible movement towards a peace deal and negotiations. So while there may be some signaling coming in from the Iranian side, it remains to be seen whether or not the U.S. is actually going to undertake that, with strong rhetoric also coming in from Mr. Trump saying for every soldier that is killed in the conflict at the hands of Iran, he's going to be responding with far more, and he's given these instructions to his forces that will be what will be the future course of action in such an incident. And while of course that seems to be an important rhetoric, it is to consider what really is happening on ground and how the situation is evolving and what really will be the points that the U.S. Is likely to consider as things move forward. There's of course this elongated war that still continues, and with it the uncertainty around the Strait of Hormuz, and then of course in the larger Middle East the situation vis-a-vis Israel in Gaza, in the West Bank and in Lebanon, and then also in terms of the very important Houthi rebels and the Saudi embargo that they seem to have put in place. And so we're going to be taking a look at how these developments are impacting the larger regional peace and security in the Middle East and what that means for the United States moving forward. Next, we're going to be taking a look at what is happening in India with regards to the very important hunger strike by Mr. Wangchuk, who was taken earlier by the government police personnel to a local hospital. And this, of course, is important, not just in terms of how the BJP chooses to respond to the very important hunger strike by Mr. Wangchuk and a number of other students, and then, of course, the demands also coming in from the Cockroach Janta Party of the resignation of the education minister in response to the exam leaks. There's concerns around what it is as going to be the future course of action that Mr. Modi takes in terms of still not answering any questions or holding a press conference. And there's also, of course, movement by Mr. Wangchuk's family, particularly his wife, whose petition has been rejected by an Indian court to move him to a private hospital, and to, of course, with regards to an immediate discharge from where he is currently. And the court seems to be endorsing the government's decision to forcibly take him to the hospital while maintaining the position that his bodily autonomy is being kept under control. And so we're going to take a look at what that means in terms of how the situation is being handled and what that says about where India is currently headed. And lastly, we're going to take a look at the important dynamics with regards to climate change and climate-induced disasters and what Pakistan has been facing for quite some time now. While the PDMA in Pakistan has pointed towards a spell of monsoon heavy rain, there seems to be concerns around what that does to the river flows, particularly those around Chenab that were earlier also cited by the Indus Waters Commissioner in terms of the ways it impacts Pakistan and the kind of fluctuations that India must respond to and answer for, given the very important obligation of data sharing that it still hasn't done so under the Indus Waters Treaty, that it continues to say it holds in abeyance, which technically it cannot do. So we're going to take a look at what that means and how that situation can be looked at forward and the very important consequences that Pakistan is facing because of it. To start off with what is happening between Iran and the U.S., we have been joined by Mr. Munir Akram, who's a former ambassador, and we've also been joined by Dr. Andrew Kuchins from the Center for National Interest in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of this show and for joining us today. Ambassador Munir, let me begin with you in terms of how you're looking at what the current momentum of the situation is. It seems that there was, albeit momentary pace because of the MOU. It seems now that the situation again is not really under control, and there's a lot of uncertainty around what that represents for both Iran and the U.S. and then also the larger regional and international dynamics. Where do you think the current momentum is headed towards, and whether or not the option or the move towards negotiations to continue is still open wide?
I think it's a very difficult situation now. I think things have unraveled, principally because of the differences with regard to the administration of the Strait of Hormuz, as well as, I believe, the resurgence of very hardline positions both in Iran as well as in the United States. I think both positions have hardened. And therefore, this steady escalation that is happening before our eyes over the last 9, 10 days, it's I believe that at some stage the parties will want to come back to negotiations and to peace process, but they have not as yet found a path towards that, and the hardline forces within both countries are pushing towards this escalation, which could spin out of control, especially if the attacks, the reciprocal attacks on Iran and Iran's attacks on the Gulf states become encompass civilian targets, oil and water facilities. The destruction could be considerable, and we could be in a death spiral as far as the war is concerned.
Right. Dr. Andrew, what, in your opinion, is the current stance that the United States is taking? And while there is a very strict rhetoric coming in from the Trump administration, do you believe that there are still efforts towards negotiations underway? What is the U.S. stance on that?
Well, I think the Trump administration was very disappointed when the memorandum of understanding, particularly the points about the control over the Strait of Hormuz, broke down. The Trump administration, though, is under a lot of political pressure in the United States. This war is not popular with a significant majority of American citizens. And there is a midterm election, of course, coming up in early November. And so the fact that, in a way, the Trump administration has kind of lost, at least 3 months, if we go back to when the hardcore military conflict ended around April 7th and negotiations started. We find the Trump administration finds itself now 3+ months later, kind of at square one almost, in that there is still no agreement really on the Strait of Hormuz. I think the Trump administration, I think the planning on the part of the Americans was not well thought out, because we should have anticipated that the first response of Iran would be to close the Strait of Hormuz. But to me, that's kind of like geopolitics 101. And then that they would retaliate with drones and missiles on American bases, allies, partners in the in the Gulf region should also have been more expected. And that situation, I think, is actually worse today, because the supply, particularly of Patriot missiles, they're in great deficit around the world. So I think we still see the vulnerability in the recent strikes over the weekend and the killing of a couple of American soldiers in Jordan, which hadn't happened since before the ceasefire back in early April. So I agree with the ambassador that there's a significant chance that this spirals further out of control. And a real problem, I think, for the United States when it comes to negotiations, because I'm sure that Donald Trump would like to resolve this conflict through negotiations. He's been pretty clear about that for months now. Is who really is in control in Tehran? Okay, we took out their leader, Ali, or the Israelis did, Ali Khamenei. We have not seen Mujtaba Khamenei since the attack in which his father and his wife were killed, and it certainly appears, to I think most of us, that the hardliners in the IRGC have significantly more power, which is not surprising. I think the Trump administration also overestimated the potential for a unified opposition to emerge, and for regime change. I mean, what the riots in January were one thing, but once you actually attack a country, then that usually has the rally around the flag effect, and I think that has been very much in play in Iran.
Right. Ambassador Munir, I'd like your perspective on this too, given the current leadership in Iran at the moment, and of course its relationship to the former supreme leader, and then adding to what we saw as part of the funeral processions of the former supreme leader. There was, of course, this symbol of unity that Iran was representing, and the stance that it was putting out for the international community. How has that impacted its current relationship with the United States and the position that it's taking as part of the negotiation process? And what does that mean to the U.S.? Is there any significant change in the ways that the U.S. administration saw its interactions with Iran prior to the conflict and now?
Yes, I think the situation, the dynamics have changed over the past few weeks. Firstly, I think Iran is not prepared to give up its leverage as far as the Hormuz Strait is concerned. I think they thought that in point 5 of the MOU, they had received that recognition, which said that Iran would make the arrangements for the safe passage of commercial vessels, that they interpreted this as recognition of their control. This was then challenged, and that's why this second round of fighting has started. But even more so, I think the leadership changes in Iran. It's quite clear that the hardliners have won. The negotiating team, as you know, had come in, under strong criticism from the hardline sources in Iran. And if you read Mujtaba Khamenei's funeral speech, you would see the kind of rhetoric which calls for revenge for the assassination of his father and his family. And that has been declared as policy by the supreme leader of Iran. So it's a measure of the sort of strong line that the Iranians are taking. And at the same time, in Washington, I think the mood has changed also. There are assessments that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz will only affect about 5 million barrels per day to the international economy, and that it is sustainable. And therefore, the United States can continue to attack Iran and afford the closure of the strait. And of course, the Arab states of the Gulf would have a different story. But the US, it seems that President Trump now, under pressure from his right-wing part of the Republican Party, by the Israeli lobby, that he seems to be in a more comfortable position in continuing this hard line fight that is now going on, despite all the destruction that is happening and despite the danger of spiraling out. And I think today we saw another step with the Houthis declaring an embargo on Saudi oil through the Strait of Bab el-Mandab. This will have another dynamic added to this embroilment. And I think that obviously there are miscalculations being made by both sides, and that is the danger that this conflict will spiral out of control.
Right, absolutely. And I'm glad you pointed out the Houthi-led Saudi embargo, because that's an important dynamic. Dr. Andrew, I'd like you to share your views on that too, and especially given the kind of restraint that we've seen from countries in the Gulf, including Saudi Arabia, in response to Iran's strikes on U.S. assets in the region. It seems, of course, that there was a lot of concern as to when exactly the Gulf states' patience is going to run out and whether or not they're going to take a more active role in this conflict. Given the situation right now, do you think that there can be a possible change, given the larger Middle Eastern dynamics and what's going on as part of the Houthi rebels, that there might be a more active involvement by countries like Saudi Arabia?
agreed that the activization of the Houthi rebels is a very significant development, contributing to the degradation of the situation. I mean, for months that was always worried about, but it had not happened at least in the first 6-7 weeks before the ceasefire took place. And secondly, just to accentuate the point about so that's a negative factor for sure, and a very dangerous one. The second negative development is that the Iranian government is considerably more hardline today than it was when before this war started, back on February 28th. And I think that they feel that they are in a position of considerable leverage with the United States. I think there's a sense that maybe we have taken the best punch of the United States, and the country is actually more unified. Yes, the economy has taken a big hit, but the dissatisfaction of millions of Iranian citizens with the economic situation, I think that they have been, they're kind of shifted the attention into, we must defend the country and the interests of the company of the country. So I think it makes the situation much more difficult to resolve. Probably where I differ somewhat with the ambassador is, I don't think that Donald Trump and the White House feel at all comfortable, frankly, with the developments that have led to the breakdown of the peace negotiations. And I think that he has reluctantly, feels like he's reluctantly responded. He's not happy to have to respond militarily and to reignite the conflict. So I don't think that within the White House there are any good solutions on how this goes. And you're very right to raise the question of, well, how patient are the Gulf states willing to be, and if they lose patience, does that mean they're going to respond in a more military aggressive way, responding to Iran's attacks on them, or are they going to kind of distance themselves more from Washington? That's an open question.
Right. Ambassador Munir, you can add to that as well, but also comment on what you think will be the likely role that Iraq is going to play, given the recent visit by the U.S. leadership as well.
Well, Iraq finds itself in a difficult situation, as do most countries in the region. Pakistan too, we are in a difficult situation because of our defense relationship with Saudi Arabia and our informal defense cooperation with so many of the Gulf states. But Iraq is in a particularly difficult situation because of the influence of Iran within Iraq. Many political parties are affiliated to or very close to Iran. There are militias which are affiliated to Iran in Iraq. At the same time, Iraq has to rely on U.S. companies, technology, capital in order to revive its economy. And I think the idea is to build these pipelines from Iraq through Syria in order to go around, circumvent the Gulf and circumvent the Strait of Hormuz. It's trying that. It's got a very difficult balancing act to perform. So it remains to be seen, whether it will be successful in its diplomacy, its balancing act. But at the moment, this is what they are trying.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Munir, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom today. Dr. Andrew, my question to you would be whether or not there is still a lot of concern around what Israel is doing in the larger Middle East for the United States, given what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank and what's continued to happen in Lebanon as well. There, of course, were efforts made by the U.S., still are, in terms of moving things and having the conversation go forward, even put a ceasefire in place. But on ground, the situation is altogether different. In what ways do you think that the U.S. is still concerned with these developments vis-a-vis Iran or in general as well? And also add to that whether you think there is a distinct change between Israel's and the U.S.'s relationship, given, of course, a recent vote also with regards to the spending aid towards Israel that did not receive a unanimous vote, which essentially historically did receive a unanimous vote.
I think that from the time that the ceasefire was agreed in early April, and the Israelis continued to attack northern Lebanon and Hezbollah forces, the Trump administration was increasingly unhappy about that, for sure. I think there's always been a problem from the get-go in this war about to what extent are Israeli interests and American interests actually aligned. It certainly appears to observers, or at least this observer, that Mr. Netanyahu was very effective in talking President Trump into the joint attack on Iran back in late February. I think that in general, that for the Trump administration, Israel is another difficult factor, in this larger equation, as it's been more clear that where the differences are between Israel and the United States. And finally, just to return to the point I made earlier, because I think that the problem with Israel, and the fact that the instance of the vote that you just mentioned, this shows just how politically vulnerable I think that the Trump administration is with the war, both on their relationship with Israel and just more broadly on the war with itself. And I'm virtually certain that President Trump was hopeful that this would have been a much easier exercise, and it would have been completed, and he could declare victory, probably sometime before the end of March. But they were too optimistic, on a number of points. And now, again, with the midterm elections coming up in the U.S., Donald Trump's domestic political position is really under fire. And as it looks like it will happen, although you can never underestimate the capacity of the Democratic Party to sabotage their own interests, that the Senate and the House, fall to the Democrats, then the Trump administration is going to be under siege for the following 2 years. There'll be, I'm sure, instances of impeachment hearings and the like. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, on the Trump administration to somehow resolve this war in Iran as soon as possible.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew, for joining us and sharing your views at the newsroom today. A lot of concerns around where these developments are taking place and how exactly the trajectory is going to be moving forward. But it seems, of course, that the ways in which the situation is ever going to be able to resolve is through negotiations, and that much, hopefully, is also clear to both Iran and the United States. We're now going to take a look at our next segment that focuses on what is happening within India, particularly around Mr. Wangchuk and his hunger strike, and of course what it represents and how the BJP is handling the issue. For that, we've been joined by Dr. Amarjit Singh, who is a political analyst also from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Dr. Amarjit, for being part of the newsroom today. I'd like your perspective in how you're viewing these things and developments taking place, especially with regards to the hunger strike that has been continuing by Mr. Wangchuk, and now, of course, his forcible admission into a hospital, and the petition by his wife also that was rejected by the Indian court. What really do you think is happening here with the BJP handling this situation?
First of all, thanks, Sana, for having me on your show again. What is happening at Jantar Mantar and in Delhi overall is what the BJP government has been doing since 2014. People have a short memory. They forget what they did to the protesters at the Shaheen Bagh when on the issue of Citizen Amendment Act, there were protests. What they did to the farmers' protest when they didn't let them enter even the Delhi, and the farmers from Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP had to camp outside the outskirts of Delhi. So what has happened in the last 24 hours, and the latest news what I have seen, that Sonam Wangchuk, he has declared that he will continue his fast in hospital until he himself or the representatives of Cockroach Janata Party are allowed to meet parliamentarians and other decision makers. Second thing is that firstly, when they lathi charge, they had tear gas shells and all, and dispersed the protesters, and even police occupied the Jantar Mantar, their protest place. Now the latest is that protesters have reclaimed that site. So these are the two developments which have happened in the last 2-3 hours. And in the parliament as well, as it was the first day of the monsoon session of the parliament, the opposition parties, they brought the issue, and the parliament had to be adjourned for a couple of times. So there was no activity in the parliament. Other than that, in the upper house, which is called Rajya Sabha, they are going to bring a bill which is like, if anybody does insult to Vande Mataram, which is the favorite of BJP, in which there is a hatred for the Muslims in the last two sentences of that he will go, he or she will be imprisoned for 3 years in jail. So I think the BJP, whose mother organization RSS almost 100 years ago, in 1925, they declared Hindu, Hindi, Hindustan, just on the Nazi ideology, their political mission. They are coming now the final stage, but it's not only now the minorities, they may be Sikhs, Muslims, Dalits, or Christians, they have suffered, or their voices has been crushed. Now even the voice of dissent, and we'll have to see that Sonam Wangchuk is an international personality, environmentalist who has brought honor to India. Even his father, he was an activist who first time in Ladakh agitated to get the few tribes there, the scheduled tribe status. And he also went into fast and to death, and Indira Gandhi herself went to Ladakh to offer him juice, and finally they accepted their demand. So I think Sonam Wangchuk and Cockroach Janata Party, to which he has given support, very simple thing is that in the month of May, the NEET exam, which is their entrance test for medical graduates, and then is UG, which is for the general services, in which over 3 million students participated, were to participate. They took exam. Then couple of days later, it was found that paper leak was there at couple of places. They rescheduled the thing, and in the process, we forget that before this protest, which is massive, thousands upon thousands of young students of all shades of society have gathered there. In the last 2 months, over 100 students have committed suicide because of the pressure when you prepare for such an examination, and all of a sudden that is cancelled. So I think it is one symptom of the disease, which is that how BJP government has crushed the voice of dissent. We have seen this everywhere. And even a couple of months ago, even a few women wrestlers, those who brought honor to India in the field of wrestling, when they were protesting there for their sexual harassment by one of their leaders, Brij Bhushan, who was the BJP leader, even they were mistreated. And even yesterday, now even I have seen the news that Gitanjali, wife of Sonam Wangchuk, even was assaulted by the police. So I think, unfortunately, in India, it's not a climate that many imagine that it will be like the change in Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or Nepal, or they think that this Gen Z will change the whole thing. I think very simple demand of Cockroach Janata Party on this issue is the resignation of Mr. Dharmender Pradhan, who is the education minister. But looking at the RSS policy and whatever they have done to the different voices of dissent, I don't think that any even political party has been able to stand before them. Look at what they did in West Bengal under the SIR when they defranchised lakhs of Muslims by taking their names out. The same process they are doing in Punjab now, where they are planning to capture Punjab in 2027, and thousands upon thousands of their SIR workers, they have descended on Punjab. They are defranchising Sikh voters, particularly diaspora, and re-entering some of the labor, or we call Pravasi, there in the voter list, those people from UP and Bihar. So I think on one hand, their political goal is fascism and Nazi-like ideology, but on the party front, as you may see that while being the Chief Minister of Gujarat, Modi, he went to China 10 times. And their model of governance, they don't want any opposition. The so-called largest democracy on this planet, I think it has all the negative traits of Nazism, fascism, and they want to create a system like China's one-party system so that there shouldn't be any voice of dissent.
I
So
understand that. Dr. Amarjit, can you also comment on what all of this means to the international audience? You're sitting outside of India, of course, you're in the US, and you understand the dynamics in terms of how this is being viewed. What exactly do you think is the current stance of the international community? How much it matters for when countries interact with India, when they interact with Mr. Modi, and especially when he refuses to answer questions for journalists both inside and outside of India?
I think in the last, almost since 2014, he has not uh, answered, or he hasn't even have any press conference in Delhi or outside. During the presidency of Biden, one time they said he will take two questions, and one journalist from Wall Street Journal, when she asked about the treatment of minorities and all, and the way he answered it, and the way later on that journalist of Indian origin, of course a Muslim lady, she was told that White House has to again come in her defense. So I think India, its image as first thing as being a Sikh, I can vouch for that in the last 30 years since I had been in United States lobbying here for our cause, whatever people went through in Punjab, and even the reflection of it, now the people have seen in the film Satluj, and even which was not allowed by the censor board for 4 years to be cleared, and on OTT platform, it was taken off after 48 hours. So I think this image, and even in Delhi, where in Jantar Mantar this is happening, they have cut off the internet and everything. So I think India has exposed under Modi itself the transnational repression part, which is now very clear, the way they have killed Sikh activists outside, Kashmiri activists in particularly Pakistan. So I think no matter what they claim, they claim themselves as the Vishwa Guru, they pat their own back. But the fact of the matter is that Western countries in general, and even in America, though certainly when it comes to Western countries' interest, the trade is the one thing, that is how they have signed a deal with the European Union and all. But I think now the India stands exposed in the name of democracy. It is a casteocracy. Even the so-called untouchables within the society, they are fearing that even now BJP is one step behind just to cancel or change the Indian constitution and implement Manu Samriti, which is the Hindu code where the caste system, four castes, they are there as the constitution of India. So I think at this stage, due to trade interests and due to the changes there as with the US-Iran conflict and other West Asia situations, they may not be interfering in some matters, but I think eventually India it stands exposed as a Hindu fascist state.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Amarjit Singh, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom today, sharing your views on what's happening inside India and what that means to the international community and how the country is being viewed. We're now going to take a look at our last segment that focuses on what Pakistan has been facing at the behest of India as well, and of course in terms of climate changes. And this, of course, adds to concerns around heavy monsoon spells that are imminent in Pakistan. And we have once again warnings with regards to heavy flooding in July, and that adds to our concerns in terms of what that means for the rivers and their flow, given, of course, that India has its own moves to play. For that, we've been joined by Dr. Imran Khalid, who is an environmental scientist. Thank you very much, Dr. Imran, for being part of the show today. In your opinion, when we talk about or hear the warnings coming in from the departments, from the disaster management agencies in terms of floods and heavy monsoons coming in the country, is that something that Pakistan can look at in isolation, devoid from what India is also doing as part of its own fluctuations, particularly in the river Chenab, and what we've been pointing out in terms of what India must do and must respond to?
Yes, thank you so much, Sana. Whatever is happening now, I mean, we cannot look at it aside or devoid from whatever India has been saying in regard to the Indus Waters Treaty, holding it in abeyance. It borders on jingoism. Nevertheless, floods are part and parcel of our landscape. This is essentially how the Indus River system has historically grown. So what's been happening in the past is that India would let us know whenever the floodwaters was rising, when it was releasing the waters from its dams. And now it hasn't been doing that through under the modalities of the Indus Waters Treaty. It's been doing that through diplomatic channels. So over the past couple of years, it's told Pakistan that floodwaters will be coming your way, but it's done that through diplomatic channels. And I don't think that it's been in a timely sort of manner. So hence, we need to be ready for it. And Pakistan has a number of avenues through which it can address these things. One of the things is that it has gone to the court for arbitration vis-a-vis the Indus Waters Treaty, and the court has provided the result in Pakistan's favor. Nevertheless, India continues to hold the treaty in abeyance, as it calls it. What we have at our disposal now are satellite systems that we did not have maybe 10 years back. We have at our disposal a connection with the Chinese satellite system that we've seen in the previous engagement, the small skirmish with India last year, and we can utilize that. The telemetry system in Pakistan is getting better. It provides us with at least 8 to 12 hours of warning when the floodwaters are coming, if not more. And so, yes, we need to be ready for it. The thing that I'm concerned about is that our governance system hasn't kept up with the climate crisis, whereby we're going to see more and more floods. We're seeing encroachment continually across the Indus River system on the eastern as well as the western rivers. And here is something that we need to do and we can address on our own, so that even if India oversteps the given timelines and the given modalities under the Indus Waters Treaty, we'll still be able to deal with the floods. And we've seen that with the housing societies coming up across the board, and so on and so forth.
Right. And Dr. Imran, in what ways then can this be factored in the conversations around climate change justice and climate financing, in which Pakistan, of course, has also put in 3 proposals with regards to the loss and repair fund, which has yet to, of course, review all of the proposals. But in what ways does the actions that India has put in place and the consequence of those actions, and particularly with regards to its refusal to adhere to the Indus Waters Treaty, also factors in the conversation around international climate justice and financing?
Yeah, so one thing that India and Pakistan need to understand, and perhaps India more right now, is that climate crisis is it does not affect any one particular country, and it's going to affect South Asia as a whole. So we've seen when floods happen, they affect people on both sides of the border. And so what India is doing is that it's saying that, look, we are going to take unilateral decisions because we are the upper riparian. Well, that can backfire. That can backfire if China tries to do the same, and China can say, look, you've done this to Pakistan. But that's a road that perhaps India should not go down. It's where the climate issues are such that cooperation really wins the day. And that means cooperation across the international borders as well as the national borders. You talked about climate finance. Unfortunately, climate finance will not be forthcoming to the extent that it is required right now when it comes to adaptation, for example. Here, we really need to ensure that our PSTP is capable enough to address the climate crisis, and we develop projects that are in line with the needs. And here, nature-based solutions are important. So this is a new keyword that's come up, but it's a historic concept whereby we take the waters that are available to us and do the best that we can. So we utilize the waters to recharge our aquifers. So when we talk about water security, we forget that there is a layer of groundwater that is essentially serving as our savings account. And the historic pathways and canals that used to be used that were under the use of the 3 eastern rivers have gone dry. But now they need to be opened up, they need to be dredged, and any kind of floodwaters that come in need to be guided into those wetlands and plains where the water can then be taken into the ground, and that not only can help us meet our food security needs, but also help us in terms of the ecological well-being of the 3 eastern rivers as well as the delta. So yes, we need to talk to India. We need to bring in the international arbitration entities, as we've already done. But we also need to put our own house in order. Shutting down encroachment, ensuring that there is improved coordination, ensuring that data is available across the board, and then ensuring that we harken back and we go back to the past era when we used to utilize these natural resources in a manner that is conducive to the needs of the communities and our ecosystem.
How well do you think we're following up on the Indus Waters Treaty issue, given, of course, that India cannot hold it in abeyance? There is, of course, a lot of the other channels that Pakistan is already exploring. But how far along do you think we've actually reached in terms of getting in the data that India must be obligated to deliver?
Well, see, so India as an upper riparian can hold this in abeyance because it believes that it has the upper hand. What Pakistan needs to do is to, raise escalate the issue in such a way that it makes it difficult for India to continue on the same path. What India is connecting the Indus Waters Treaty issue is to terrorism. And so this can go on. So Pakistan has currently shut down its airspace. And Pakistan can say, look, we'll keep the airspace to Indian airlines shut down as long as you do not come back to the negotiating table. The other angle that Pakistan has is to say that, look, Indus Waters Treaty essentially took away the 3 eastern rivers from Pakistan. Pakistan does not get even an iota of even a drop of water under the Indus Waters Treaty in the eastern rivers. So what we'll do is, if you mess with the Chenab, we'll go to the courts and we'll say, okay, let's do away with the treaty, and then we'll call for the 3 eastern rivers to be opened up as a lower riparian. And so let's remember that earlier in the last decade, when the Kishan-Ganga verdict came through, it allowed India waters so that it can cater to the ecosystem needs. And Pakistan needs to do the same thing. And when Pakistan goes to the arbitration courts and says, look, the waters under the 3 eastern rivers are our right. It's our natural right. And Pakistan would like for India to allow waters to flow that way. Secondly, Pakistan should say that, look, the dry beds of the previous rivers, the eastern rivers, are now serving as conduits for hazardous waste and municipal waste. We are not going to take that water and put it in our system. And India needs to do better and ensure that it comes to the treaty and discusses all of these things. Else, India cannot continue to use the treaty to its benefits where it thinks that it's going to benefit, and when it comes to the needs of the lower riparian, it can ignore them. So Pakistan has a number of avenues that it can explore, and it might take some time.
And absolutely, that would be something very essential, and however much time it takes, it is something that Pakistan will continue to pursue. Thank you very much, Dr. Imran, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom today. There's a lot of concerns around the warnings of monsoon spells and heavy rain in Pakistan, but that, of course, essentially points towards what is happening as the added consequence of India's actions that must be dealt with. That's all that we have from the newsroom today. We'll now see you tomorrow.